I want you to picture something with me for a second. Imagine your whole family gets invited to the biggest event of their lives, the most important day your family will ever have. A prophet, a well-known prophet of God, is coming to your house. There is going to be a ceremony, the whole thing, and everybody knows something huge is about to happen. Your dad, your mom, siblings, relatives, brothers, they're all there. Everybody's lined up, dressed to the nines, and ready, and nobody calls you. Nobody bothers to inform you. Maybe you don't even know it's happening, or you know it's happening and they still send you out of the house on an errand and you're not present. Nobody even bothers to think that you would love to be there or you should be a part of what is happening in the family. Nobody notices when you're not in the room. You're just outside at work running errands, or you actually went to your job. That's literally how David's story starts. Not a giant, not a crown, not a harp and a psalm. It starts with David being forgotten. Welcome to my series, The Hidden Life of David, and the whole idea behind it is this. Most of what we hear about David is a highlight reel. It's about Goliath. It's about his becoming king, the big public wins. And those are great and a part of his story. But I've always, well, not always, I think as I've gotten older, I've been really interested in the parts nobody talks about. The quiet years, the waiting, the stuff that happened to David before anybody knew his name. Because the question I keep coming back to is this. We usually ask, what did David do? But what I want to ask is, what was God doing in David? It's a different question, and I think it's a completely different story. And so we are starting from the beginning. We are starting from 1 Samuel 16 with a kid nobody thought to invite. So the chapter opens and it's a kind of heavy moment. Samuel, the prophet, is grieving. He's grieving King Saul because for all intents and purposes, Saul has basically blown it. God has rejected him as king. Samuel is torn up about it. I mean, that was the first king that he crowned. And God says something to him that, I will not lie, stops me every time. God is like, seriously, how long are you going to be mourning for Saul? Like, move on. Get on to the next thing. And the first time I read that, I was like, wow, that's cool. That's cold. That's harsh. Like something monumental has happened to Samuel. There's been a shift. There's been a huge change in his expectations and things haven't turned out the way he wants. Saul is the first king he's crowned and he's practically divorced himself from God. And Samuel is feeling for someone who I'm pretty sure over the years had become not just the king he crowned, but his friend, someone he was advising. And for the longest of times, I have thought about that as just God being harsh and cold as he needs to be sometimes with us. But looking at it with more mature eyes, I am thinking about it as that's just God redirecting him. Because while Samuel is still stuck in the last chapter, in the previous chapter, God is already working on the next one. Like there is a horn of oil to fill. There is a house to go to. There is a kid in the field who has no idea what's about to happen. And for me, that's the first new lesson I picked out from 1 Samuel 16. That while I am so busy mourning what has passed, what isn't, what hasn't been, or what was, or even opportunities missed, that God has moved ahead and is prepping for the next thing. For in the story of Saul, Samuel, and David, while Samuel was mourning, God was already preparing the next season, and everybody was stuck in the one that was lost. A lot of us are living in yesterday. And I'm saying us because that's not something I am immune to. We are grieving something, a job, a relationship, a lost opportunity, a version of our life we thought we'd have. Even looking at where we are compared to our peers and others. And it feels like everything is on pause. But heaven and God hasn't paused. Sometimes God has already started tomorrow while we're standing in today, looking back at yesterday, still missing yesterday. Our eyes are on yesterday, and God is already on tomorrow and the tomorrows that come after tomorrow. Samuel had to be told to get up and move, and sometimes we have to be told to get up and move. And so Samuel gets up and moves. He goes down to Bethlehem to the house of a guy named Jesse, where God has sent him to. Jesse has a bunch of sons, and Jesse brings out his sons to meet Samuel one by one. You have the oldest, which makes sense. In most cultures, if somebody comes to you and says something is coming to your children, at least in my culture, we often assume it starts with the oldest. That's the head of the line in terms of the kids. So it makes sense that, oh, okay, then I bring out your sons. There's going to be somebody crowned the next king. All right. Automatically, you bring out the oldest. And then Samuel takes a look at the guy and like, that's him. He's not only the oldest, he's tall, he's impressive. By the way, attributes that were used to describe Saul. Saul, if we recall, the tallest in the land at the time he was crowned king. And so here is Samuel having been redirected to go to the next chapter, to move on to the next event, still looking in that next chapter through the gaze and the lens of the previous one. You go read about how they talked about Saul. Saul was tall, looked good, was impressive. He looked the part. And the first person Samuel looks at that looks like Saul, he goes, yeah, that must be the person. And God goes, nope, next dude. And then next one comes and God is like, meh, next one. And Samuel is like, surely this is him. And God says, no, move on. And then 7 sons come and there are 7 no's. The detail I love is that after 7 sons, even Samuel is confused. Like, what's happening here? The man, I have instructed him to bring out all his children. He's brought out all his children. God, you sent me here saying the next king is from one of his kids. Jesse, are you missing somebody? Because I don't think it would have ever occurred to Samuel that Jesse would not bring out all of his sons. It would never have occurred to Samuel. Like the first time I read it, would not have occurred to me either. Word has gone out that the next king of Israel is coming from your house. You assess all of your children, and it doesn't occur to you to count and make sure everybody's present. And that's why Samuel is confused. Like, I'm pretty sure he's brought out all his kids. Are you sure you've brought everybody out? Because the one thing Samuel knows is God does not make mistakes. And if he's assessed these 7 and it's not one of them, then what's happening here? Jesse, David's own father, didn't even think to bring him. It's not that this is the last option. Yeah, let the others go first. It's most likely isn't David. It's not even a thought. Not even a thought to bring him. David didn't make the list. I'm pretty sure everybody is dressed, suited and booted, cleaned, oiled down, waiting with anticipation. That's the kind of thing when you set the children down and the prophet is right at the door, you look around, you count, make sure everybody who should be present, look at the clothes, hair, we're all good. Even at the last minute check, it did not occur to this man that one of his sons is not there. Even in the eyes of his father, David was not a choice. The Bible doesn't tell us why. It doesn't say David was in trouble. He was in timeout. It didn't say that his family disliked him. So I'm not going to add sauce to the story. But if you look at what the text says, it says David wasn't presented. He was still out with the sheep. Samuel had to ask if there was anybody else. And then somebody says, oh, yeah, the last born. David, let's go get him. I'm sorry. If it's in today, Why not go get him when in the hustle and bustle of the preparation? That's when you send somebody to say, boy, come over here. You and those sheep, come back home. There is an important to do. Let's say he missed because the preparation wouldn't have started an hour before the prophet came. Probably the whole day, the day before, cleaning the house and prepping the food and making sure if David said to head out in the morning, assuming he was heading out in the morning, hey, there's a thing, come back here. Or when checking the kids, has anybody seen David? Somebody go grab that boy. I know he's out there with the. It was then when the prophet asks that somebody goes to get him. We usually say David was the last choice, like he was at the bottom of the list. But David wasn't the last choice. David was not a choice at all. Nobody in that room was betting on David. Not his brothers, not his father. The one person in the entire scene who was thinking about David was only God. And the next verse, we've heard it, even if we don't know the exact chapter and verse. Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. It's a beautiful verse that we put on coffee mugs, that we put on t-shirts and bags and merch. But the thing we often don't reflect on is who God was talking to when he said it. He was not correcting Saul. Saul was not even there. He was not correcting Jesse. He wasn't talking to Jesse at that point. He was correcting Samuel the prophet, the most spiritually tuned guy in the room. Was who God was saying, stop looking here, because this is where I'm looking. I'm looking in the heart. Between when Samuel walked in and when God talked to him, like it made me reflect how many times, remember I told you Samuel was looking at Eliab the oldest through the lens of how he'd assessed Saul, through the lens of the yesterday that he knew. How many times have I done that? Have we done that? When we're asking God for something and looking for an opportunity, but we keep looking in the same places we know. We've heard success comes this way. Or if you're looking to meet someone, this is where you go to meet someone. And so we keep looking in those places through the lens of yesterday. Or if you've been in a relationship before, have you noticed that sometimes it almost feels like you're in a relationship with the same person, just different names, different bodies, but the character is the same? I've seen people who've gotten married and divorced and remarried probably 2-3 times, and it's almost like they're marrying the same person. Different name, different DNA, but in terms of personality and character, the exact same person. And that might be because we are always looking at tomorrow through the lens of yesterday. And then we're always assessing here the physicality, whether we are judging somebody or whether we are assessing an opportunity or planning for ourselves. We are looking everywhere else except spiritually. I'm not saying it's not a call, it's not a word of condemnation for us. Take Samuel. Samuel did it too. And Samuel was a powerful, powerful prophet. It took God to tell him, stop looking outwardly because I'm only looking here. And that's kind of humbling. Like if you're thinking about Samuel, the most powerful prophet in the land, a guy who literally hears from God, like God is talking to him like a human being would talk to you. He could still get fooled by what somebody looks like on the outside, which again was the mistake that was made with Saul. Israel had gathered to look for a king. First of all, God said, you don't need one. They're like, we need one. We're already going against that. And God is like, why? Fine, pick one. And this was a judgment. The look was by appearance, the tallest in the land, the good-looking guy. We all judge by outward appearance. And Samuel did the same thing, just like the rest of us will. We tell ourselves that once we're a little mature, a little more spiritual, a little further along, we'll stop sizing people up by the surface. But I found that maturity doesn't automatically fix that. Samuel proves it. It's something we have to keep choosing to see past every single time. Every single time. Sometimes our initial reaction to someone or a thing or a situation is physical, and sometimes that's just instinctual reaction. The sign of maturity is being able to press pause and looking beyond that. So let's move along on the story. So they go get David. He comes in the field. And then the Bible does that thing it sometimes does, where it kind of puts in a phrase that looks like, oh, it's very easy to skip by. The Bible describes him, say he's ruddy. Beautiful eyes, handsome kid, but think about how he described his older brother compared to David, as if to emphasize in physicality. This is not where your mind would go to go find the next king, but this is who I've chosen. Some of the best people you will meet, some of the best people you will know, whether as acquaintances, as friends, as spouses, are going to be people who are not packaged the way you think they should be. David was so different from what human eyes and thought had said a king should look like. But the minute he walked in, God said, that's him. Get up and anoint him. And so Samuel gets up, pours the oil. The Spirit of God comes on David in front of his whole family. This, not even last choice, but overlooked kid, just got chosen to be the next king of Israel. Like, that's a huge moment. And then he goes back to tending sheep. Nothing changed. There was no parade. There was no palace. The army didn't show up. All hail the next king. Nothing. He gets anointed as future king, and he's right back in the field with the same sheep, doing the same chores he had before he got anointed. The anointing didn't change David's circumstances. It changed his identity. God changed who David was long before he changed where David was. And that's one of the most consistent patterns in the Bible when you think about it. God speaks over somebody's life and then leaves them right where they are for a while, not as punishment, but as preparation. And that happens to us, right? Where we get a word of prophecy, we read something where I'm hear from God even, anticipating something, and then you wake up morning after morning and it's like you're stuck. Nothing has changed. You're still in the same spot. Still dealing with the same problems. But we've been anointed and we've been called. Just who we are is most likely changing. But where we are still remains the same. It's preparation for the next level. There is nothing worse than going to the next thing and being ill-equipped and ill-prepared to handle it, whether it's spiritually, mentally, physically, in all the ways. David went back out to the field. But remember, David wasn't out there praying, God, make me famous, God, make me king. David wasn't performing for anybody, and nobody was watching, nobody was clapping, nobody was filming, except for God. David was faithful before he was famous. And in that faithfulness, God called him, and God trusted that while he was preparing him, he would still be faithful. It is important that as we are waiting for God to learn wherever we are, we're not performing for anybody. Whether somebody sees us or not, God always sees us. And when he has sent us a word, to go back, I think it's very important to go back and ask God, okay, in this in between season, between when I've heard it and when things manifest, what do you want me to learn? What do you want? What's the preparation process? What's the goal here? So that when manifestation comes, when circumstances and the scenery changes, we are ready, we are prepared. It's not easy. This is not me saying it's easy. In fact, as I'm talking to you, I am talking to myself, because the in-between season is a place where you've heard from God, you trust in God, you know what's coming, but good heavens, the today looks like it's not moving. And when you think about tomorrow, it looks like it will not change. And you're thinking, you even get to the point where did I hear things right? Are you sure that was meant for me? It's the in-between space. But skipping ahead, we know David eventually became king. We know he's written in records, one of the most easily recognizable, most talked about king from his place. Remember, David went back the next morning, then the morning after that, the morning after that, the morning after that, after being anointed. Same field, same sheep, same routine. Looked like nothing was different, but something was different, and it wasn't the field, it was him. He now knew something nobody else knew. God had spoken over his life. He still didn't have the crown or the palace or the throne and the accolades, nothing to show anybody. All he had was a promise from God. And a lot of us have this idea that when God calls us, everything should change right away. New city, new job. If you're praying for a relationship, new house, new something. I think those things come. They will come. But if you look at David, his location didn't change. Well, how he saw the location became changed. That ordinary field became a place where he was being formed for a throne. And so what if the boring place we're in right now isn't a waiting room? What if it's a classroom? The ordinary thing that nobody sees, what if that's actually where God is doing the deepest work? Equipping us with what we need for the next level. This is where you begin to hone skills, tighten relationships with God, change mindsets and thinking. The work that needs to happen emotionally and mentally for the next place. The forgotten places have a way of becoming holy places. You just usually don't find out until later. That's something I've learned from David. David's story is always pointing at somebody bigger than David. Think about the pattern here. David is overlooked by his own family. Centuries later, Christ would be rejected by his own people. David was born in a little town called Bethlehem, so was Christ. David was the shepherd who became king, and Christ, the good shepherd. The overlooked shepherd from Bethlehem becomes king, and it's almost like a preview of Christ, a trailer for the greater king who would come from David's own family line to rescue the whole world. So that forgotten kid in the field wasn't just an underdog story. He was the beginning of something God was doing that was way bigger than one guy's resume. So let's bring this home. Here is a question for us to think about. Have you been confusing unseen with being insignificant? Because again, I've been there where I felt unseen. But are we confusing unseen with being insignificant? Because I don't think they are the same thing. They feel the same, but are not even close. David was unseen for years. Even after he was anointed, he was off in the field doing his thing. Unseen for, I bet even his own family were asking, oh, okay, so what's the change? Because I'm thinking about his brothers, the response of his brothers when he went, I'm skipping ahead, but the response of his brothers when they were all fighting Goliath and David showed up. Remember, his brothers also know he's been anointed as king. He was unseen, but he was not insignificant. For those of us in any season right now where we are feeling overlooked, feeling insignificant, be it at work, in our family, at church. You're pouring yourself into something and it feels like nobody's noticing. I'm not going to hand us a cliche. I just want us to see what the whole Bible keeps showing us. God has this pattern of working in people long before anybody recognizes what he's building. The hidden season isn't God forgetting us. A lot of the time, it is God forming us. Somewhere quiet where our character can grow without distractions and without the pressure of an audience. So that even in the moments when it feels like we are behind, we're not behind, we're just being hidden. And always remember, hidden is where David started to. I know in the hidden spaces, we are wondering, well, how long do I need to be hidden for? David didn't know how long it would take between when he was anointed and when he would be king. He just believed it would happen. And again, I will never minimize how difficult that can be. But that's the space where we need to be. In the moments when our thoughts start to run away, to just hang on to what God has said, because we know his words will surely come to pass. For this episode, here is a hidden life challenge, and I will try to end every episode with a life challenge. Find one thing you can do this week where nobody's going to notice, and do it well. Serve somebody, help with something, do something in church, show up somewhere, and don't tell anybody. Don't post it. Don't drop a hint. Don't fish for the, oh, that's so nice of you. Just let it be between you and God. Let it be worship instead of a performance. That's the whole challenge for this week. One hidden act of faithfulness. So practice being David in the field. Let us all practice being David in the field. David's story didn't start with a giant. It didn't start with a throne. It started with a kid tending sheep after everybody in his family forgot he existed or didn't think of him as a choice for the next thing. And maybe that's the point. God does not need the whole world's permission or the world's applause to start doing something in our lives. So if you got something out of this, do me a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Share, clip the parts you like. Definitely share with someone you want to hear it. Because we are just getting started with the hidden life of David. Every episode, we're going to try and dig and find the lessons that are more than just the ones we've heard about before. And in the next episode, we are going to be talking about what happened after David got anointed. We're going to dive into it some more. That quiet season, the in-between season, in between the promise and the place. We've touched on it this episode, but I think we should spend more time there because it will teach us how God actually shapes a person. And hopefully we're able to figure out what David did while he was waiting. I will see you in the next one.